So in the last video, during the tutorial section, I mentioned if you guys would be interested to see a dedicated video about contrast. The response was overwhelming. So there you go. Everything you need to know about contrast inside Resolve. And we're gonna start off with this gray ramp, which you can basically get under effects. Let me hide that. And if you go to generators, you can just drop that on. And then I just like right click and turn it into a compound clip. So it shows up like a clip in here. And all I'm doing is I'm basically just converting this from Rec 709 to DaVinci Wide Gamut and DaVinci Wide Gamut back to Rec 709. And if the conversion is done right, if you look at the scopes, if we turn these nodes on and off, it shouldn't change anything. And that's how you know it's converting it properly, okay? Especially when it comes to generators like that. And why am I creating this sandwich? It's for a simple reason. So let's just say if we turn these off and then I create a node prior to this, and if I just take my lift and pull it down, just keep an eye in my parade what's happening. And if I go to my gain and I do this, you see like how there is no cap, there is no roll off on the top or the bottom end because it doesn't know which color space it's in and what it needs to adhere to. When I turn this off and I turn these back on, we're basically telling it, hey, keep me in DaVinci Wide Gamut working color space, but then spit me out as Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, which what you guys are going to be experiencing this in. So now if I come here and I go to my gain and I do this, look at the response, how different this is. And if I go on the low end, how the bottom and the top has like such nice roll-offs compared to what was happening before. So again, if I go here and look at this right here, and then if I go here and turn this on, how soft this is. So most of the time we are mathematically converting our footage to be working in a certain color space. So keeping that in mind, let me show you 3 most common ways to create a contrast. And first of all, let's talk about what is contrast. Contrast is basically difference or distance, I should say, between your darkest part to your lightest part in your image, okay? So if we look at it here, it's a very linear image. It starts from dark and then ends in like bright, okay? So the 3 ways I can control my contrast, the first most traditional method is by using our lift gamma gain. I can go, let's just darken the bottom end like this, and then I want to raise my gain, and I can create a nice S-curve like that, okay? So that's one way to do it, and then I can use my midpoint to control where I want to keep my midtones, and that's how I would create my contrast. That's the first way to do it. The second way to do it would be using your contrast slider in here, and we can move this around, okay? And then we can take our pivot and control where the mid part is. Okay, so we can basically have like a really strong top end and then a nice roll off on the bottom end, or we can do the opposite. So like a very soft roll off on the bottom end and then very tight on the top end. Okay, and the third way to do it is by using your custom curves where you have a lot more control. So just look at the shape that we're creating. It's like we get to determine where we want to put everything that we want. And we can create a bunch of points here to like really create like a nuanced custom curve, right? So we can do something like that, which you cannot do with this, which you cannot do with these. So these are the 3 most common ways to set up your contrast. Now, how do you know how to properly set up your contrast in your image, right? And what are some big no-nos and what are some you must do this rules when it comes to setting up your contrast? So let's stick with, let's just say if I'm creating a look and I want to set up my contrast. So the first step is balance your footage. And let's just say, let's pretend our footage is balanced. This is where we want everything. The next step is going to be to find a middle gray point. That would be like where the meat of your image is going to sit. So I shouldn't say just skin, but like the meat of your image is going to sit there if it's exposed properly. And then you want to do your contrast on the top and the bottom without necessarily affecting that point that you balanced and exposed, okay? And that is extremely important. And let me show you why and how we can go about it. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm pretending that this is properly balanced, I'm going to use a tool called QT charts, which gives me this thing right here, mid-gray. You don't have to use this. You can use whatever you want to use. But basically what we want is, we want this line. We want our 18% gray to appear. And now that I can see where my 18% gray is, I can just go ahead and click right here. Okay? So basically what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to be building my contrast right here, I can go ahead and click on this point right here. And as soon as I do that, look what happened. We created a point here, right? Now I can go ahead and build my curve without touching this right here. So let's just say if I want like the top end to be like this, and I want my bottom end to be like that. And if I go before and after, so there is like a little bit of difference, right? But our goal is to keep our middle point as close to this middle gray as possible. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use my panel and I'm going to travel to the middle point, and I'm going to start raising it up, and I'm going to eyeball it, right? So now I just nailed it. So just that much adjustments right here. And now we built this very strong curve without affecting our middle gray, where meat of our image is going to be. And this is going to make a lot more sense when we work with actual footage. But this is the concept that you need to understand. Because outside of that, what happens is this. If you don't do this properly, and let's just say you eyeball it, you start creating contrast and you go, okay, I like this. I like this. Like, this is a pretty healthy contrast. I think I'm going to park my image right here, which is great. Now, if I turn this on, look what you did to your proper exposure, the meat of your image. Look how much you dropped it. So you basically just dropped about like 2 stops, at least. You went from here, your middle gray, your perfect exposure, all the way down here. So you completely messed up your image. So if you're working with a client and they constantly tell you that your stuff looks too dark, it's because you're not following the first rule, which is locking in your 18% or your middle gray. And now if I come here and go, holy hell, like, how can I recover this so we can get back to this? Well, it's easy. Now that I know this, I can just go in here and start cranking this up until I go. So now we recovered ourselves right around 3.35. And the thing is, this will always stay the same. So if your image is properly exposed, now you got this value, which is your perfect mid-gray. So now lock this in. You can even take a snapshot of this and then use that as a reference, that if you have your midpoint set to, or your pivot set to 0.335 and your image is properly exposed, you can freaking go ham here. And your image is going to look legit. So like, we can go all the way, do whatever we want, open it up, tighten it up. And if we go before and after, we're locking in that mid-gray. And then obviously, once you build your look and you're good to go, you can just turn this off. But how important was this guy? It's an absolute game changer. Okay. So now that we did this, we can apply this to any technique, all the 3 techniques that we use, right? I don't even have to, like, let's just say, lock in my 18% gray. If I have this turned on, I can just like go crazy and start building in my look, right? So I could just be like, dude, I want to go really strong, do something like that. And then grab a point and come in, do something like this and do before and after. And I can go, all right, this is looking really good. So see how easy it was? I can just start, riffing it and then come back and then just like lock in that point. Okay. And then the final way that we talked about, which was lift gamma gain, we can do the same exact thing now with lift gamma gain. So let's just go, I go right here. I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to lift my gain up to create like a good amount healthy amount of contrast. I'm going to raise this up a little bit. And then what do I want to do? I want to keep my gain right here, but I want to pull my midtones up a little bit. And now I do before and after. And I nailed it. Just like that. So whether I'm using lift gamma gain, contrast sliders, or custom curves, now that I have this knowledge, I'm just solid. It doesn't matter what kind of look I need to create. I can respect and lock in the exposure as the cinematographer intended. This, for rookies, is going to be their biggest Achilles heel, because I just remember for the earlier part of my color grading career, this was the bane of my existence. This just happened all the freaking time, where the cinematographer would be like, dude, I like the look. I like the colors. What the hell did you do to my exposure? Everything looks like a stop, two stops, like darker. Moving on to our shot now, which, by the way, I picked a shot that I can give you guys access to, so then you can practice along with me. Link is going to be in the description, so check it out and get the shot if you want to practice along. So all I did to this shot is shot on RE Alexa, so we're converting it with Alexa to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and then DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709, and then I just balanced the shot. So this is how it is, Rec 709, and then I just went ahead and balanced it. And we're going to apply the same exact techniques we learned from the previous example. So I'm going to drop my DCTL. I'm going to select QT charts, and then I'm going to turn on mid-gray, and I'm going to create our look right here. And all we have to do, we have that point available here now. So let's just try all those different techniques, right? So like if I go in my contrast and start building my look, so like if I do something like that and I go, oh, it looks good overall contrast, but man, I can barely see this guy. It's because we dropped about a stop. Like, look at what's happening to our mid-gray. So now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to raise that up, and I'm going to do before and after. And now I'm just like, it's looking perfect. So now at that point, I can go, let's pull this, open it up a little bit. And okay, this is a really, really healthy contrast. It's looking great. And then this could be my new contrast, right? Or if I want a lot more control over my contrast, let's do the lift gamma gain, right? So like I can raise it up to something like that, and I can take my mid-gray or my gamma and pull it down, and now I'm going, there you go. That's another way to do it. I actually really prefer this method. So what we should do as a fun exercise is to save this version. So that is our lift gamma gain version. Let's go back to our contrast version, and let's save this right here. And now I'm going to reset this, and I'm going to build it from scratch. So let's do it using our custom curves. So let's try to lock in our point right here, mid-gray, and then let's just control it. The best part about this is that we get to define where we want to build the most amount of juice. So let's just say on the top end, if I want to go something like this, and then on the bottom end, I want to go like that, but I want to create like a really nice, gentle curve on the bottom end because I want to see more detail in his eyes, but I still want like really juicy image. So let's just raise that up so we can soften up because we have like a lot of white in our image. So I don't want to destroy that. So now we have like really nice, gentle roll-offs on the top end, beautiful roll-offs on the bottom end. And we got to create this without sacrificing anything. Minus, we did bring it down a little bit, but I want to be a stickler to just like really nailing my 18% or my middle gray. So I'm going to start raising it up. And if I go right here, I just nailed it. So now it's like locked in. And that was our final way, which is my preferred way when setting up your contrast, especially when it comes to your look. If you are adjusting your contrast for shot matching, if you want to match a few different shots, then you can use your contrast slider here or lift gamma gain. But when it comes to like building looks, always use this because it just gives you so much more control. So here's another example because I want to give you a couple of different scenarios. So like say in this one, we wanted to create like a pretty good, like healthy contrast, like punchy look. And then this one, since our subject is our hero right here, and we want to make sure that she looks as pretty as possible. So we don't probably want to add so much contrast, and we want to create like a really gentle, soft look. Let's just say it's a different project. So keeping the same rules and everything in mind, I just went ahead and balanced the shot and lifted her up a little bit. I'm still going to use my custom curves. Again, you guys can feel free to use any other method you like. But the reason why I'm going to be using my custom curve is because I want to create like a really nice soft look. And let's just say I don't even lock my 18% this time. So I'm just going to create like a really gentle look on the bottom. And I'm going to soften it up to something like that. And then what I want to do is I want to create something like this, like a pretty soft look here. And if I do before and after, like look at where my 18% is. And like what a gentle, soft curve we created, right? Can we create like maybe a few more points and just make sure that it has a little bit more punch? And this did it. So it pops the highlights, but does like beautiful roll-offs as seen right here. It lifts our blacks, right? Like our shadows to create this sort of like really nice matted look. And then it just creates like a lot of juice in the middle as we want it, right? And what can we do? Can we push it a little bit more? Again, I don't want to go too far. So I want to go here and just like lift my skin back to where it should be, my 18%. And this is looking pretty soft to me. So I'm gonna go back here again and just like lift it up a little bit. Let's lift it up a little bit more. So now we're locking in our 18% and we're ending up with something like that. So it's a very gentle look and it accomplishes all of our goal, which is pop her from the background, give enough meat to every other color to create that separation as we can see here, do beautiful roll-offs on the top end so the lamp looks great, and then do this matted magazine-like look on the bottom end, and we did just that without muddying our midtones or our hero. And she looks absolutely gorgeous. And you can see like how we protected our 18% and ended up with a look like that, which is very different than a look like this. And just by, and like, look at the difference in our curves. Yet we kept our 18% consistent as seen right here. And we ended up creating such a gorgeous look. And that's why knowing the rules first is always key before you go ahead and break them. And once we have this technical prowess and just knowing enough to understand what we're doing, we can have a lot of fun. As you saw, like we created a very, very different and interesting curve and a somewhat complex curve with the amount of points we're using compared to what we did here, which was pretty straightforward, because we wanted to make sure that she looks as good as possible. So here is the gist of what you need to know when it comes to using contrast inside Resolve like a pro. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, smash the like button so we can reach more people. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do so. Hit the bell icon so you could be notified about future content. And if you want access to QT charts, special link is in the description with 15% off for my YouTube fam only. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, fam.